Fire Mountain Aria, written and narrated by Jill Penrod. Chapter 28. Echo had to admit she'd expected something else from Trace. He'd returned calmer than when he'd left, and he'd apologized, and then he'd suggested they move forward with their plan. He didn't give his opinion except when asked, and he'd agreed with nearly everything they'd done for the past 5 days. He was making her nervous. Worse, his focus had been strangely calm through all of this. They were looking at some potential danger, and she was a little worried. But Trace, who hadn't been able to stomach a villa rescue half a cycle ago, was treating the situation like it was a fun family outing. She wondered if dealing with the animals had broken something in his focus. G thought they manipulated him. Maybe it was worse, and they permanently damaged him. "Ready?" he asked as they stood in the drip room in their deep dive suits. Dayton and Kaya were in the pit running the skipper and the monitors while she and Trace prepared to go into the water. She'd assured everyone Dayton was here representing Tormandu, but the eldsingers on the boat only smiled smugly and nodded. She had to admit falling for a guy while surrounded by eldsingers was a new and disconcerting feeling. Another team had come to help them, old friends of her parents. Aramon and Garci were geologists and eldsingers, and they would dive with them. Their partner Annalie had come to help them find the vent spewing ash. Yesterday, 2 days after their arrival, she'd found it. Plugging the hole would take time, and it had to be done after the heat was vented here below, but it wouldn't be dangerous. In fact, Trace had suggested they hire someone to do it. Katie had said yes. Katie wasn't here for this, but every time Echo had seen Katie in the past few days, the woman had given Trace strange looks, like she knew something the rest of them didn't know. People with dormant foci were frustrating. "I just heard from the other team," Dayton said into her ear. "They're ready when you are." She looked at Trace, who normally would give the word to go, but he only nodded. "We're good?" he asked. "We are," she said. "Are you okay? Do you have doubts?" "It's a good plan. It uses everyone's skills. Dayton, give them a go." The 4 of them would jump into the vent to clear the rocks focally. Trace had already moved the easiest ones out when dealing with the Vatnausch, and those remaining had to be moved from inside. The amount of Montefollow rock in the mix was simply too much for searching and moving from the outside. They would move them close to the opening, and Gianni would jump the rocks out of the tunnel to the nearby ocean floor. Kaya and Annalie would add stamina from the skippers if G needed it. G himself could remain in the skipper just outside the tunnel opening, so he would be safe. They'd worked hard to make sure this was as safe as possible. They all met in the tunnel in a flash, and quickly they found a rhythm. Trace moved the most weight, and he took care of all the Montefollow rock, as he was strong and precise. Echo and Garci took care of most of the small debris, which was a slow process. Aramon gave Trace stamina for large rocks and then moved a few medium pieces on his own. Trace was in the lead, and she felt a jolt from him. He stopped moving, and she pushed forward to see him. "You're okay?" she asked. "Yeah," he said. He looked at her, a trickle of blood streaming into his eye. He blinked fast. "Sorry. That one was especially jagged. I thought I compensated for it." "Are they getting too big?" she asked. "Too difficult?" "I don't think so. I might shatter the big jagged ones and take them out as debris. I'm okay." He hesitated, and she realized what he was waiting for. His focus gave him away. He was bleeding, and he expected her to be angry. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "We haven't been fair, have we?" He shrugged. "It's not that. And maybe this isn't the time. We're okay, right?" "We're great. I would hug you, but it's like hugging a mini-sub." He laughed and returned to his work. "Any idea why someone would want to plug this 80 years ago?" Garci asked. He was doing the same thing Echo was, and it was tedious, not difficult, so they'd been talking. 80 years? Trace asked. Why 80 years? This rock was cut about 80 years ago, Ahriman said. I thought I mentioned that. Sorry. Yes, someone purposely filled the hole 80 years ago. Meaning it held onto this heat for 70 years without being plugged, Trace said. That's about right, Garci said. The vent wasn't big enough. But it will be fine for now. You might want to enlarge it in the future, but opening it all the way will stop any fear of a breach. 80 years, Trace said. No idea. At that point, Tormendu was an active agricultural reef, but this side is dark. There are no travel routes over here, so nobody pays it any attention. I guess a person could do this and not be seen. Ahriman, I need help with this one. Echo and Garci stopped to watch the two men lift and move a large, jagged stone. Trace hissed as another jolt of pain hit. Do we need a rest? Echo asked. Trace took a long, shuddering breath. We might. Ahriman, are you getting tired? A little, but we still have a long way to go. That doesn't matter, Trace said. We can stop if we have to. Gianni, are you getting tired? I'm fine, G said through the radio. What do you have in mind? I hate to ask this, but what would you think about coming into the water? Ahriman can take your place, only he can do it from the water. It will take him less strength, and you've got the power to help me. Echo felt Trace's focus flutter when he said the words. He didn't want G out here. He was nervous and had been from the moment they got to the tunnel, but the idea was sound. She'd thought all along they needed G's strength out here, but she'd feared Trace would balk if she suggested it. She was proud of him for asking for help. I can do it, G said. The stones aren't big. Moving them such a short distance through the water isn't hard. I've got a lot of power left. Okay. Trace took a deep breath that rattled the mic in his suit. Dayton and Kaya, be careful with him. I'm not asking him to move in the suit just to be down here. But, honestly, I don't want him down here with so little diving experience. Sorry. It's okay, Trace, Dayton said. We'll get him safe for you. I'm good, G said. It's a good move, Trace. Echo had to smile within the confines of her suit. She didn't know what had happened after he'd stormed off the skipper in light of their anger, but he'd come back a little wiser. She knew what this cost him. His focus wasn't hiding anything right now. But he wasn't letting that fear take over, and she was proud of him. While they waited for G, she and Garci moved more debris. While Trace and Ahriman had implemented a two-step process to get the large rocks into the ocean, Echo and Garci had determined the debris was easiest to move all at once, so they were sending it straight through the wall. Trace had questioned that, saying they would drain fast with the extra power draw from the Montefallo rock song, but she had insisted. Trace had been right, and the song was draining them fast. Unfortunately, Trace was usually right. Garci, let's rethink this, she said. I know you're wearing out. Faster than I expected, he said. What do you have in mind? Let's do what they're doing. We'll move it in 2 stages. Let me send it to the tunnel entrance near the spot where the guys are landing their big rock, and then you can send it out. I can stand near Ahriman, Garci said. Yeah, thanks. I'm struggling with the new song. I'm not as young as you and Trace. She knew it wasn't age. Garci was the weakest of the eldsingers in the water. But that didn't matter. His geological knowledge was as important in this endeavor as his strength. In a few randoms they were moving again, with G in the tunnel and the older men near the entrance. This is a big one, Trace said from ahead. G, give me a minute to think about this one. So we finally have rocks too big to move? Echo asked. How did they get them in here? Good news is the biggest ones aren't Montefallo rock. I think the only Montefallo rock we have in here is what fell from the ceiling and walls over the years. This one takes 2. Aramon, Garci, we're going to move it to you. We can give you stamina to move it further if you need it." She waited, not singing anything while they worked, but as soon as the stone flashed out of existence, the whole tunnel shuddered. It seemed the rock was bearing some of the weight of the wall. She saw the distant flash where they dropped the stone near the entrance, and then she started to run, because stones were falling the whole length of the tunnel. "This way," Trace said, beckoning. "I'm under a shelf here. Come this way." She and G both moved forward, a slow process in the deep suits. Rock fell around them, a few smaller chunks hitting her, but her suit remained intact. She and G both got to Trace as a crack and large shutter filled the tunnel behind them, and they watched from their safe spot as rock fell, nearly filling the tunnel and blocking their exit. Fortunately, they seemed to be under a sturdy shelf of stone, so they had a little room to move. "Well," Trace said, "I'm sorry. I had no idea that stone was holding up the tunnel." "How would you know?" G asked. "I'm sorry, Trace. We've made you second-guess yourself. We're not out to get you if you make a mistake." "In this job, a mistake can have dire consequences," he said. He took 2 deep breaths, and she realized he had a second trickle of blood on his forehead, this one traveling over his nose and down the side of his lips. "Are you okay?" she asked. "I'm fine," he said impatiently. She leaned closer, wishing she could touch him. "Trace," she said, "it's okay. We're working together. I don't know what changed, but this isn't on you. We knew there would be scrapes. I want to know because I'm your sister, your friend, not so I can be angry." He looked at her and blinked his irritated eye. "My head hurts, but I think it's the pain of the scrapes and not focal. G, does it feel focal?" "Maybe the first hints of tremors," G said, "but no more than can be expected. What do we do now? Can we jump out?" Trace leaned against a pillar of stone at their backs. "Give me a minute to think. Or all of us can think." Echo laughed. "We won't be offended if you come up with a solution. Dayton, Kaya, are we still connected?" She got no response, meaning the amount of rock in the tunnel was substantial. She hoped Aramon and Garci were okay. "That's not good," G said. "Is it?" "It's not dire," Trace said, "but we don't have unlimited air, so we have to get out eventually. Let me run a very gentle search. That's okay?" Echo nodded and wished she and the others hadn't made Trace so fearful. Right now, they might need a firm plan. He played, wincing when he let the wind go. "Okay, I'm not jumping us through there. I might have more luck going straight through the rock, but at best, I could jump us one at a time, and I don't know if I could get myself through. That song takes more power." "Did you feel Garci or Aramon?" Gianni asked. "No. I suspect they got out. They were close to the entrance, so they could escape." "So it's just 3 of us," Echo said. "We'll hold on here a minute and think. Surely we can get 3 of us out of here." "You know I can do it," Trace said quietly. "I can make it happen." "Only at the expense of yourself," she said. "Let's table that idea until we've given it more than 5 seconds of thought." Trace rested against the wall, and she hoped they could find a way out that didn't hurt him. Trace felt the Vatnausch coming from a distance, and he laughed. "What is it?" Gianni asked. "We have company. Long, skinny company. I feel several of them. I thought they were gone. Clearly I can't feel them in here. They must have a very complex tunnel system down here." As he said it, one of the small ones slithered through the spaces in the stone and circled him. He felt something he considered urgency from the animal. It circled him twice and then hovered in front of his face. "I feel like you want me to understand," he said to it. "I don't know what you want." It slithered through another hole and then came back, repeating this 3 times. Curious, he ran a quick scan, finding a low opening in the direction the creature had been swimming. Was it trying to get him to move? The space was nearby, large enough for all of them, and likely safer than where they were right now. But was the single move going to get them closer to an exit? He had no way to know. "It wants us to follow," Trace said. "There's a gap over there, large enough for us. I can't know if it's a good idea or not. I'm not sure where or when it gets thin enough for us to safely jump out of here." The whole tunnel shuddered again, and the little eel shot out of the hole. If that thing is scared to be here, then I'm a little scared to be here," Gianni said. "Echo, do you think a move is in order?" "I think following an eel is suspect, but I agree I don't feel safe here." Trace easily jumped them to the new location, where the eel slowly swam in a circle, its lavender tentacles lending light to the dark chamber. "I'm going to search again," Trace said. He took a deep breath. "I don't know how many searches I've got in me. Echo, you want to do it? If we need one big push at the end, I'm going to wait, okay? But the truth is, I don't want us to die in here." He was fearful, and he didn't try to hide it. Katie had been right. He needed to see them, and that meant he needed to be seen too, even when he wanted to hide. Echo ran the search and said yes, they were a little closer to the wall, but still not in a position where he could safely jump them out. The whole area shuddered again, and the eel shot out of the room and then cautiously returned. Trace raised his arm, and the little animal swam around it. "It's frightened," he said. "I think it's young. I feel more of them out there. I'm not sure where. I think we need to try again. We might need to move to a more stable spot." The eel circled and then swam through another opening. Trace searched and jumped them again, this time to a smaller space. It was cramped, but they fit. "Echo, check it out," he said. "Are we closer to the wall?" She searched, and yes, they had moved marginally closer to the ocean. "Trace," Kaya's voice suddenly said into their ears. Trace smiled at how much her voice comforted him, even though their situation hadn't changed. "Echo, Gianni, can you hear me?" "We're here," Gianni said. "We're moving. I guess we just jumped into range." "I can't search through to find you," Kaya said. "The radio is barely picking you up. Are you okay?" "We're fine," G said. "Aramon and Garci?" "They jumped back. They're fine. What do you want us to do?" "Not sure," Trace answered. "The Vatnaush are leading us, but I don't know how much to trust the judgment of an eel." "The Vatnaush," Kaya said, her voice strange. "They entered the tunnel less than a random before it came down. About 6 of them. Trace, did they cause this somehow?" "No," Gianni said. He laughed. "No, I think they predicted this. I think they came to help us. Trace has helped them more than once. They're returning the favor." "Still," Trace said, "I don't know if they understand our needs. We can't live forever in the water like they can." "Go ahead," Echo said. "Let's just go ahead and trust them. I don't see any other way out. Maybe if they get us closer, we can jump out safely. I know you want this over, Trace, but thank you for not jumping out and hurting yourself to protect us." Trace said nothing. The eel darted in and out of one spot, and Trace searched and jumped them again. Then he did it 2 more times. But his focus was tiring, because these tunnels contained Montefiore rock, and they had one wide slab of the stuff between them and the ocean. The little eel returned, this time with a friend. They were small, no longer than his arm, and they twined around one another, one lavender and one blue. "They're beautiful, Trace. I'm glad we saved them," Echo said. "They came back for us," he said. "I'm honored. But she said 6, and we've got 2 here." "So search a little further if you can," G said. "Maybe they're all looking for places for us to go. Or maybe they're stuck somewhere." Trace did as asked, and he laughed when he dropped the wind, although he'd once again scraped into his forehead. "Good thinking." All 6 are out there, only there are 7. 3 are in chambers, or I think they are. They're circling like these 2. I can jump us again if you want. I think each jump takes us closer to the edge, but because we're so close, each jump is harder than the one before. I know you want me to be careful. I'm trying." Gianni played a long search, and when he dropped the wind, he nodded. "Let me play stamina. The paths go through very little Montefallo rock. I think you'll be safe." "Wait," Echo said. "You're sure, Gianni? Don't slam him into the rock." "I'm sure." "I trust Gianni," Trace said. "This might get us close enough to the wall to jump out. Kaya?" "She's with Anna Lee," Dayton's voice said. "Garcy came back a little battered. She's helping. What do you need?" "Can you find us?" "Maybe. I have a general idea, and the radio seems to know. Sensors aren't giving me a thing. We hope to be close to the ocean in another couple jumps, but I don't know where we'll pop out," Trace said. "I want you to try to stay close." "I'm on it," Dayton said. Trace took another deep breath and looked at his companions. "We're good?" G laughed. "We're fine. More stamina?" "Please. I'm getting tired." "Can I help?" Echo asked. "I want to do something." "Don't move," Trace said, "and hope for the best." He jumped them through 3 rooms in quick succession, and an eel with green tentacles waited in this room. It curled around Trace's arm and then his torso, and he wondered what about him attracted the little guys. The entire area shuddered again, and Trace put his hand on the wall. For the room to shift around them was disorienting. "I don't like this," he said. "Dayton, how far is the shaking? Is the whole reef experiencing tremors?" They waited, and then Dayton told them it was local, that nobody on the reef was feeling this. "You're deep," Dayton said, "almost on the floor. The people are a long way above you. That doesn't mean this section can't collapse on you. I suggest you hurry." Trace ran another search, blinking more blood out of his eyes. "I've come to the end of the Vattenhouse chain," he said. "No more wide chambers from here. It's time for us to get out. But the thing is—" "You're about done," Gianni said. "Can I do it, Trace? I've got almost the strength you do." Trace closed his eyes. He hadn't finished the statement, and he didn't want G to do it. He didn't want anyone to do it. "I'm not sure," he started. "See them," Katie had said. "Let them fail." But this failure meant someone might not survive. It was a long shot that all of them would survive. That scared him, but it scared him the least if he was the one to go. Surviving one's loved ones was 100 times scarier than dying oneself. "Because it's a suicide mission," Echo said gently. "Right, Trace? You don't think you can get yourself out?" "I don't know," he said. "Look, I'm willing to stand here a while and think about this. G might be able to get us out, but I'm not sure he can get himself out either." "You're a lot more warned than I am," Gianni said. "I want to try." "No," Kaya said from the skipper. "Not acceptable. The eels aren't helping now?" "I think we've come to the end of the larger gaps in the stone," Trace said. "What if we found you and got close?" Kaya asked. "If all the singers on this skipper gave you stamina, could you do it? You or Gianni?" "Maybe," Trace said. "Find us, Kaya. Dayton's good with tech. Find us and play at us, and we'll see if we can feel it. I'm not trying to die or to hurt anyone." "We know," Echo said. "It's okay, Trace. We know this hasn't gone according to plan. We're doing okay." Trace leaned against the wall and closed his eyes, wishing he could wipe off the blood. "I think we found you," Kaya said a few randoms later. "I'm getting the group together. We're getting close, and we'll test and see if we can't get you out safely." They waited in silence, nothing but the gentle sounds of everyone breathing through the mics. "I'm sorry," Echo whispered. "Trace, we were hard on you." He smiled at her. "Are you saying that because you think we're about to die?" She laughed. No, when you scare me, I'm hard on you. I hate to worry. You've done this well. Thank you." He didn't say anything, a little overcome with emotion. Maybe he'd done it. Working with a team hadn't been as difficult as he'd expected. The cavern shifted, and he felt a strange jolt from all the Vatnash, which, it seemed, were in the tunnels all around them. Then the shift became more, an actual shaking. Echo let out a screech and leaned on the wall, and bits of rock fell from the ceiling. A low wail came through the earpiece, and G's eyes widened. "What is that?" Gianni asked. "Your suit." Trace took a deep breath. "Your suit's been breached. Stamina, G. I'm sorry. I tried, but you're not dying in here." G began the stamina song, and Trace played a painful search. He had to get G into the skipper. With his suit damaged, nothing else would do. Echo added her stamina, and with the extra power, Trace felt the skipper and shifted to jump G there. The power tore from his head, and he winced. "Now you," he said to Echo. "I'm sorry." "No," she said. "This isn't the plan, so no apologies. G will give you stamina if we wait." He nodded. Be a team player, he thought. Take Echo's suggestion. But the cave lurched again, and he felt fear from the eels around him. Worse, he felt it from further out. The younger Vatnash had provided his rescue, and the older ones were nearby, afraid for their offspring's lives. They'd put themselves in danger to rescue him. He couldn't let them be crushed here in the caverns. "I have to save them," he said to Echo. "They're animals, and I'm sorry, but I have to save them." With that, he jumped her away, sending her not to the skipper, but just outside the wall. Then he started another song, adding the Montefallo rock notes to the song. He hoped to round up all the little eels, who settled as soon as his focus touched them, and send them out all at once. Before he got to the final notes, one of the longer eels squirmed into the chamber with him, the largest, oldest one. Trace changed the song, shifting his focus to grab it, power flowing out of him until he could barely breathe. He felt his focus crumble under the strain. Then the cavern shifted yet again, and something hit him. Trace Odell yelped as his suit tore and his focus ripped wide open, and he wasn't sure which shuddering was the world around him and which was coming from within.